All right, let's do some quick updates on some players that I think are going to come back this week and miss this week. Let's start off with some good news. Nico Collins is eligible to return off of injured reserve with that hamstring injury that he suffered a little while ago. It looked like it was super mild initially, but then they came out, labeled him week to week, and then they ended up putting him on IR. They've been saying that he's been on track for the past 2 weeks, and then yesterday they gave a little bit of confusing lingo, just being like they'll see where he's at, but I think they're just playing it close to the chest. But I think he is progressing, and I think they just don't want to give away their strategy with him coming back this week. But I do expect to see Nico Collins playing. I'm going to do a long form on AC joint injuries, but Ceedee Lamb sounds like he has a more severe grade 1. He was in a clear amount of pain, and now we have Dak Prescott out for an injured reserve period of time. The Cowboys aren't looking great in terms of their playoff hopes. I don't see any reason why they rush back Ceedee Lamb this week and risk him aggravating that joint, potentially putting him out for a longer period of time. So AC joints, although they can be played through, you have to take into account the other factors. And with the other factors that we haven't played here, I think that Ceedee Lamb sits week 10. Christian McCaffrey returns back this week with his bilateral Achilles tendonitis. There's something to be said for them likely putting him into a ramp-up period, but even if a CMC at 50% strength is someone that I want in my starting lineups, you got to play your studs as soon as they're back. And I do anticipate that Christian McCaffrey has had more than enough time to return back from Achilles tendonitis. I'm going to put a long form version up on this, but everyone seems to think that Achilles tendonitis is a career-ending, season-ending injury. It's very fickle, it doesn't resolve well, and although in this situation, Christian McCaffrey did take a prolonged period to come back, I've seen tons of Achilles tendinitises that resolve within a week or two with just simple exercises and no other treatment. So I don't want people to think that Achilles tendinitis by default means something like a blown out ACL or something like that. It's very much a spectrum of injury severity. Let's talk about T. Higgins, who also missed last week and was listed as an anticipated do not practice for today, even though they didn't have a formal practice. I've been saying that T. Higgins is a high injury risk for the past couple weeks now, and that continues. Whether or not he's going to play this week is still up in the air. I would err on him playing this week just with how long he's been out and the average duration of quadriceps strains, but just know that he is a very high injury risk going forward, and play him with caution in these upcoming games. If you have a player that you think is of equal talent and you're not sure who to go with, I would go with the other player, not T. Higgins. Dak Prescott, another hamstring injury. He's placed on injured reserve. To be honest, at this point in time, if it's a 1 QB league, I would probably drop Dak. There's plenty of QBs out there on the waivers. I just saw Tua out there on a bunch of waivers, and he's a perfectly viable quarterback. So unless you have an IR slot, I wouldn't really be holding on to Dak at this point. AJ Brown had a knee injury. They got an MRI. They said it was clean. They say he's day to day. That tells me that he still has an injury, but it's mild as expected. I would put him at about 50% of suiting up. I do think it's the MCL here, most likely. Those are the kind of knee injuries that you can entertain playing through. Could be a mild bone bruise. They haven't really given any clarification, but the video mechanisms seem to be an MCL. So looking at about a 50% chance of suiting up this week.